There's a proverb, chapter 26. It says, "As charcoal to hot embers and wood to fire, so is a quarrelsome man for kindling strife." As charcoal to hot embers and wood to fire, so is a quarrelsome man for kindling strife. When we're in conflict, we want to be more like a glass of water, or a fire hose. We want to be like water. We want to bring it down. That should be our aim, is not to add to the already burning flames. Nothing good's going to come of that. Things get burnt. We want to be more like water. So what are some tips for how to be a Christian when we're in conflict? Because we're going to come into conflict. Everybody in the Bible we read about wound up having some conflict. Jesus had conflict. Paul had conflict. James had conflict. Peter had conflict. We have conflict. And it comes in various shapes and forms. So a few tips from Paul, the great preacher and psychologist. Number one, it's teamwork makes the dream work. If you say teamwork in our house, our kids are going to finish that sentence for you. Right? Teamwork makes the dream work. And speaking of our house, you're not going to believe how many times Adrian and I have been to Christian counselors for our marriage in our first couple of years of marriage. We had to seek counsel. Because why? We loved each other, but we had conflict popping up left and right that we didn't anticipate and didn't really know how to navigate. And so we were smart enough to know we didn't know what we didn't know, and we sought help. We sought third-party perspective. And Paul is telling these ladies here, and he's telling the church here in this text, you guys need to get together, put your heads together. Come alongside these women who are faithful believers, who have labored with me, and help them come to an agreement. I'll read it. He says, I entreat Euodia and I entreat Syntyche to agree in the Lord. Yes, I ask you also, true companion. We don't know for sure who true companion is. It's somebody. It's weird that Paul just addresses somebody there. And I don't think he's talking to the church at large, although he is talking to the church at large. And then he says, help these women who have labored side by side with me in the gospel, together with Clement and the rest of my fellow workers whose names are in the book of life. So he's calling out people and he's saying, hey, come around these ladies. Get involved. Sometimes when things when we're in conflict, it's hard to think straight, right? I know me, I can demonize another person if they disagree with me in a split second. You could have been my best friend, and you know, all of a sudden you are a monster in my eyes, right? But we got to remember, when we start thinking about people as monsters, there's a monster in us too, right? So, but how do we get a cool head in this whole thing? Sometimes we've got to invite others into it. And this isn't like a crusade, right? We're not going around getting people, like-minded people, to agree with us in the church so that we can now bring a stronger case against the person or whatever. This is like, we need to bring someone who has no skin in the game, someone who just wants to see us unified and see the body of Christ in unity the way it's meant to be. And so teamwork makes the dream work. And by the way, we should all have someone in our life already who regularly can speak into our life when we have an issue. Somebody who's above us spiritually, maturity-wise, who when we go to them and we ask them for some counsel and they give it to us, we don't push back on them. We don't argue. We don't make it hard for them. We have them because we trust them, and we're going to let them speak into our lives. Doesn't mean we're going to just, like a baby bird, swallow everything they say without digesting it and deciding whether or not we're going to spit that out. But we're not going to make it hard for them to give us good counsel. We pick somebody we respect enough to just allow them to be a neutral, just a voice of reason. That's part of this discipleship, following Jesus, is imitating someone who we respect, who's godly, and learning from them and behaving like Paul always says in his letters. Imitate me. You saw me there. Imitate me. He isn't afraid to say that. It's like, wow, this humble guy is not afraid to say, imitate me. And so we need somebody in our lives living. And a lot of people are like, well, my disciples are dead people. I listen to the Puritans. It's like, no, you need somebody alive that can speak into your life. Teamwork makes the dream work.